Welcome to the Aquaponics module. In this module we're going to break down the elements of an aquaponics system, so the aquaculture part and the hydroponic part, and look at how the two can be integrated together into an aquaponics system. Then look at some different design ideas, so what kind of possibilities there are, and in particular in the New Zealand context, some suitable plant and animal species that can be beneficially integrated together to create a nice aquaponic system. In a hydroponic system, we're growing plants in water and the nutrients are added to that water, and they're normally artificially created nutrients that are dissolved into the water, supplied to those plants that are often in glasshouse type situations on grow beds or stacked beds to make the most economic use of the space occupied by those hydroponic systems, and to provide a nice consistent environment as far as temperature and lack of wind, and nice consistent level of nutrients. And the benefits of that is it's going to provide the conditions for that plant that are always at the maximum level for production, so always at the best best temperature to support photosynthesis and respiration and drive the biological processes in the plant. Good range of nutrients to support the continual growth of that plant. Nice sheltered environment without any pests, so they grow them in just plastic cups where the roots are just exposed to the water flowing through them, or in a sterile gravel often, where again it's just a rooting medium for the plant, and then all the nutrients are supplied in the water source. So you're getting quite a good consistent growth of the plant, and you can control the variables within that environment quite well to get good production. So benefits of a stable environment. And in that stable environment you've got good temperatures, good nutrients, almost complete lack of pests and diseases, so it's often quite a sterile environment because all of the nutrients are chemically provided within the water source. And the other one is it's such a clean environment that it makes harvesting and packaging that product quite easy. You don't need to wash it or do any kind of further treatments to it often. It's just a matter of cutting it and packaging it and sending it off. So ease of handling and packaging. And in many overseas places, because there's no sprays being used in that system as far as pesticides or herbicides are concerned, that in some of the overseas places you can certify the production within such a system as being organic. But in New Zealand, because it's not recognised as being part of a biological system to provide those nutrients, it can't be certified as organic in New Zealand. So a lot of producers will export their product to those overseas markets where they can also subscribe that organic label to their production. So what happens with an aquaponic system is it takes these two systems, the aquaculture and the hydroponics, combines them in the most beneficial way to support the overall production. And what you're getting in a hydroponic system is the fertility from the wider landscape that you can then pump through your glass house often, where it's all set up as a hydroponic system, but the source of fertility is from a natural system. Or in a more compact setup, you can do it from just a container even of fish, or a fish tank of fish, and it's the fertility from those fish that is feeding the plants the nutrients they require. So often you get a setup where there's a fish tank and an associated sump tank where water's collected. So the fish are kept in the fish tank, and then water can be pumped from the sump tank without sucking up any fish or any plants that might be in that system to provide habitat for those fish. And it's pumped out from that into some grow beds. So they're often suspended above the fish tank so that the water can flow from the grow beds back into the fish tank again. So there might be a tube at the lowest point on that, just delivering the water back into the fish tank again. And in this grow bed, often just gravel is used. So it's a nice stable, often quite a fine gravel is quite best, and it provides the finer the gravel, the more able it is to maintain, so to be wet longer. If it's too big a gravel, the airflow through it's going to dry it out quite quickly, so a more compact gravel will help block out the air and keep it wetter longer and more humid environment. So in those grow beds of gravel or some alternative rooting medium, you can grow your plants. And if that's in a nice north-facing glass house, so you can incorporate that into a nice north-facing glass house system. And you don't necessarily need it to all to be a glass house, because there's benefits to be had from passive solar heating on here. So if you've got like an earth or a concrete wall to the back of this glass house and some shelter from, so this might be also a glass panel here. So I'll just draw the glass in a different colour. It's not a very good one. So you're getting good light access into the system, but have a bit of a roof in here to block out some of the midday summer sun. You can also collect water off that roof and help you store that water to be recirculated through the system to make it a bit more sustainable in its water use. And then providing it in this kind of sheltered glass house habitat is going to keep it warmer and protect it from winds and block out pests that could get into that system. And it creates quite a highly productive system. So it has the benefits of an aquaponics system as being a controlled environment and providing a good constant source of nutrients to promote constant plant growth. But it also has the benefits of the aquaculture system of being based on natural fertility and cycling of nutrients and biologically rich system, so that the nutrients that are in that are naturally derived and then can therefore be certified as organic in New Zealand. And it opens up a big market opportunity in New Zealand of producing all of the things we currently do in getting too many hydroponic system. Yep. So the hydroponic systems we currently produce in New Zealand, like berries, are quite commonly used in New Zealand. We could produce this way in an aquaculture system and certify them as being organic, because the fertility is one that's naturally derived. So it's interesting, some of the design potentials with that, particularly as you integrate it into a more farm scale aquaculture design, and maybe on a bigger glass house scale. So you can scale it right back. You can have an aquaculture system in your lounge or living room, just with a fish tank and some grow beds suspended above that fish tank, or you can have a bigger one in your garage or on a spare bedroom, or in just like a little glass house you can have, or on your deck you can have little fish tanks with these grow beds all done up in these little plastic containers. Is quite commonly done. But on a bigger scale, with dams and bigger glass houses, you can potentially create a system where the sources of nutrients that are driving production are coming off the productivity of the whole system. So there's sustainably produced sources of nutrients that are then feeding the the phytoplankton and the algae and the feeder fish that might be feeding the bigger carnivorous fish like perch that are in your bigger pond down the bottom. So you might have a system of creating a phytoplankton rich pond further up that are feeding some feeder fish like a mosquito fish maybe that are in this pond that are then a food source for a perch. So there's a sustainable supply of food in the system. There's a sustainable supply of nutrients to feed that food. And then if it's in a nice passive solar designed glass house, you don't need to heat the system either, and you can create nice consistent temperatures in such a system throughout the whole year by having a well-designed kind of earth incorporated glass house that buffers the temperature changes. And to increase the temperature over winter, the water that flows through the system can be coiled around some black alkathene piping that's buried in a big compost mound, and then the heat from that compost mound can heat up that water before it's pumped back through the grow beds or the fish tank again, so you're getting some biological heating that way. And you may even have some solar heaters connected up into here to provide some supplementary heating in winter too. Or you might have some flues, so this might be a concrete or earth floor with some flues connected to a fireplace. This could be backing onto your house, so you're getting secondary heat from your heating of your house, also heating this glass house, and there could be a flue from a pizza oven maybe that's on your deck that's going through the base of this to keep it warm, or even a flue that's coming from a fireplace that's in your house. And you may even have something in like chickens in there that help generate a bit of extra heat to stabilize the temperatures in there in winter too. So with a bit of careful design, you can sustainably provide on a big scale all the nutrients and food and heat to create a nice sustainable production in there. And then the only really input of energy into it becomes driving the pumps to circulate the water in that system, and even that can be the energy from that can be gathered from solar panels on the glass house, or a little windmill, or a water wheel or something. So there's sustainable options to provide that electricity too. So it's quite exciting, some of the design possibilities of creating a really intensive production system in your zone 1 that's integrated in with all the other production systems on your wider landscape, and how all the flow of energy and resources on that wider landscape can be concentrated and harnessed to drive this more intense production in your zone 1 area. And your plants, you can create really nutrient rich, mineral dense vegetables in here. It's quite surprising what you can grow in gravel. Things that, like tuber plants, for example, that you'd think would only grow well in soil can grow really well in that kind of system. But also for growing cuttings, the growth of a cutting will always be best in an environment where it's nice and moist and there's good even temperature to that cutting. So just by sticking a cutting into this gravel, you're providing all the optimal conditions for a good strike of roots on that cutting. And these systems can be really useful to propagate plants on a big scale, to plant out your treed systems on your farm and create a nice, sustainable way to provide seedlings for planting in your property.